Yeah, it's right there to the left of share screen.
Done. Yep. Thank you. Okay, I think we are done loading attendees. So anytime you're ready, we can begin.
I'm good when y'all are. Good afternoon and welcome to the January 28th BAR Small Virtual Meeting. My name is Glenn Gardner, and other board members present this afternoon are Lindsay Van Slambrook, Billmore Wilson, Julia Martin, and Bill Huey. City staff present today are the BAR Small Administrator Kim Lavin and Preservation Planner Linda Bennett. The order of today's meeting is as follows. Each application will begin with an introduction overview of the project by city staff to the board and the public. Following the introduction by staff, each applicant will have a 10-minute time period to make their presentation of their project. Please make sure to clearly state your name for the record, and this time period includes the presentation allotment for all owners, developers, designers, and consultants. So if you are tied to the project, the applicant presentation time is your window of time to speak. Following the applicant's presentation, there will be a public comment period during which time the city staff will call on those who have signed up in advance to speak, and any letters or emails that have been sent into the city will also be read into the record at that time. Again, please state your name if you are speaking online. Following public comment, the city staff will make their comments and recommendations. And there is then a brief period following that recommendation for the applicant to respond or clarify to any of the public comment or city staff and recommendations. We recommend a 5-minute limit to that time period. Next, we come to the board discussion and vote, at which point the floor is closed for all public comment. The applicant may only clarify inaccurate information if they are asked a question by the board. Otherwise, this is the board's time to deliberate and make a motion and a final vote. For the record today, the following 2 items have either been withdrawn or deferred. So if you were present for number 3, 56 Cannon Street, or number 11, 43 to 47 Broad Street, please note that those items have been pulled from the agenda and may be heard at a different time. And finally, please limit your comments to architecture only. The board today is only able to consider architecture, and we do not have purview over zoning, parking, traffic, lot coverage, or livability concerns. And from there, I'll turn over to Kim Lavin for meeting protocol.
Thank you, Mr. Gardner. Staff will control the PowerPoint presentation that includes everything submitted by the applicant by the deadline in accordance with submittal requirements. Applicants simply need to ask staff to advance to the next slide during your presentation. Applicants, staff, and board members are required to give their name whenever speaking. Video and microphone has been disabled for all attendees. Attendees, not board members or staff, will only be given capabilities to speak when they're called on during public comment period. Chat and the Q&A functions have been disabled. For public comment, applicants and all team members and the public have been required to register, indicate the project they wish to speak on, and submit any documents in advance of the meeting. Just as in-person meetings, all applications heard today are part of a public meeting format. If you have registered and will speak during the public comment portion of the meeting, you will need to state your name and address for the record. Those members of the public that have registered will be called on in order by project. Members of the public that speak are encouraged to remain in the meeting for the completion of the item that they have commented on. Staff will call the registered members of the public to speak for each project. Unregistered members of the public who raise their hand will not be called on, unfortunately. For the board members will be polled by the chair for comments in their vote on a motion. Each member, when voting, should respond yay in favor or nay not in favor. The chairman should reread the motion verbatim, and the board member making that motion should correct the chairman if he has not reread the motion accurately. If a board member needs to recuse, he will temporarily be removed from the meeting and placed back in the meeting at the start of the next agenda item. If the board needs to go into an executive session, they will call into a separate conference line and video and audio on Zoom will be temporarily turned off until they are ready to return to the regular meeting. Results and staff comments will be posted on the city website at www.charleston-sc.gov, and these proceedings are being recorded. Well, I don't have a slide for it, but our first agenda item is the appointment of the chairperson.
And so, thank you, Kim. I am going to briefly kind of mention to the public that this is a mayoral appointment to be a member of the Board of Architectural Review. So the makeup of our board does rotate every few years. And so we have one new board member who has joined us as of a few weeks ago. That is Lindsay Van Slambrook. And with that, we are also in need of nominating a new chair of our board to conduct the meetings. So at this point, I will open the floor for any nominations for chairperson.
Fillmore Wilson here. I nominate our newest member, Lindsay Van Slambrook, as chairperson.
Thank you, Fillmore. Is there a second?
This is Bill. I'll second.
Okay, thanks, Bill. So we have a nomination by Fillmore with a second by Bill Huey for Lindsay Van Slambrook as the new BAR small chair. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And with that, the motion carries unanimously, and Lindsay Van Slambrook is our new BAR small chair. And I will turn the meeting over to Lindsay.
All right, thank you, Glenn. So we'll move on with the agenda. Moving to agenda item number 2, 5 Cedar Street. Kim?
5 Cedar Street is requesting conceptual approval for additional height. The property is obviously not rated. It's in the East Central neighborhood. It's new construction, and it's in the Historic Materials Demo District. It's just a little bit of context for you. It's north of where the Ravenel Bridge comes down, just at the terminus of New Market Creek. And here's some existing site photos. That house you see is number 9. And Mr. Chamberlain, you have the floor. Whenever you're ready.
Hey, can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, hi there. My name is Chamberlain. So this lot is a challenge lot. There's an OCRM line that cuts it in half. So really only half this lot is buildable. That area floods very, very bad. The flood zone is also bad. So I had to elevate it for a drive under garage. So I already lose 1 story. With building a 1.5 story home in this neighborhood, it doesn't really make a lot of sense because Cool Below Apartments is right beside me, 3 doors down, and that's a 5-story building. The neighbor to my right has permit in hand, I've been told, to build a 3-story house before the height changed. And then my father owns a house, a lot a couple doors down, and he has a permit in hand to build a 3-story home here too. There, as you see, the neighborhood, there's not really a lot there. It's mostly just raw land. So we're trying to bring some development and growth to this area. So like I said, the 1.5 story house in a small little lot with only a small buildable portion really renders this lot almost unbuildable, in my opinion. You know, I'll be happy to change up, you know, some of the materials on the property to make it more architecturally appealing, but I am asking for an additional 1/2 story, please. And this house is only 1,480 square feet, so it's not a large home. That's all I have.
Chamberlain, do you perhaps want to go through the slides with us?
Sure, absolutely.
Just tell me when to advance.
You go ahead and advance. So as you see, looking at the rear of the property, the marsh is all in the backyard. So there's that OCRM line. Then again, print to the right of the property, it says part of lot 74, City Council of Charleston. There's actually a large drainage canal that runs through that. So Lee Batchelder said that that lot is rendered unbuildable. So my house is actually, or my lot is actually the last buildable lot on the street. Now, like I said, everything around it is pretty much either vacant land, and there's about 25 townhomes across the street that are 2-story, and those have been flooding out. So the neighbors are trying to band together to see if they can raise up the whole entire townhouse compound. Because it floods so bad, all this area here, about a foot deep in the street. You can go to the next slide. So this just shows your garage floor level and then your roof plan there. The house is only 20 feet wide by about 42 feet long. You can go to the next slide. And that just shows the rear porch, living room, floor plan of the house. You have a next slide. So in the front elevation, you know, I always think it's going to go with regular James Hardy plank, but I mean, I could always switch to an artesian siding to give it, you know, the thicker look that, you know, the historic district would have. And I can go with the 5V roof or standing seam roof, something like that, whatever, you know, the BAR wants to see here. However, it would be the only house in the neighborhood with all these architectural details, because all the other homes don't have that, but I would be happy to do whatever you guys recommend. That's all I have for you.
Board members, do you all have any questions of the applicant at this point?
I have one. Mr. Chestnut, can you just spell out for us the flood zone that you're in and the required first floor elevation?
Yes, so it's currently AE 13. My benchmark is set about 5 feet in the telephone pole, or 6 feet, I believe, actually above grade. So I already lose a full story with the flood zones. I have to be 2 feet above the base flood elevation.
So the current just adopted flood zone is AE 13, correct? Or that's the previous flood zone?
It's AE 13, yes.
Currently with the new maps.
Correct.
Okay. So your finished floor has to clear 15, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Thanks.
Any other board questions right now?
This is Bill. I wanted to ask the applicant, what are the floor to floor height or floor to ceiling heights on both levels?
So I'll pull it up for you right now. Let's see. The whole height of the entire structure is going to be 38 feet. Let's see. Sorry, I'm pulling it up.
It's on the elevations.
Yeah, I
can't
can't
read
put it in. Right. I'm going to tell you right now. Each floor height's only 9 feet with a 14-inch truss in between. So your garage level, that's a 7-foot garage door. So from grade to the bottom of the floor structure, it's going to be 9 feet 4 inches. To the first floor elevation will be 10 feet 8 inches. To the rooftop, it's going to be 37 feet 9 inches from grade. So just under 38 feet.
Okay, so on the first habitable floor, what's the ceiling height? And then the second floor where the bedrooms are, what's the ceiling height?
9 feet and 9 feet as well. We tried to make this building as short as possible.
Thank you.
There are no other board questions. We'll now hear from the public.
I don't think we have any public comment.
Okay.
Nope, we don't.
No public comment, Kim?
That's correct.
Okay. Now it's time to hear from staff. We'll move on to city staff comments and their recommendation.
Just a moment, sorry about that. We have several comments, but first, just want to discuss this property is outside of the jurisdiction of the BAR. However, per zoning ordinance, this parcel must be reviewed by the BAR for the additional half story that's requested. This lot is a unique outlier in that due to the context of the street and the fact that half of the lot is undevelopable, we're in support of the request. It's important to note that the BAR does not believe this project meets the architectural merit test for any architectural elements, style, materials, or detailing, but rather the context of the lot make it otherwise unreasonably undevelopable. This doesn't set precedent in the Old City District, the Old and Historic District, Landmark Corridor, Historic Corridor, or even the demolition purview, but only in the very unique situation that it presents. So our staff comments are as follows. The size of the front elevation windows are quite large and should be reduced. The bay at the front should either be eliminated or made deeper with supporting brackets of some sort. The garage door is far too wide and should be reduced to a width of somewhere around 9 feet and recessed as far as possible. Fenestration on all elevations should be restudied for balance and consistency. The rear doors should be reduced to a single entry door and window. So the staff's recommending approval for additional height, but deferral for general architectural direction, with future submittals reviewed at the staff level. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. I am going to go back to the applicant. Chamberlain, did you have anything that you wanted to respond to as far as staff comments? We didn't have anything from the public or anything you wanted to clarify?
Yes, if you don't mind. While I appreciate, the approval for the additional height for general architectural direction, I will be the only house in the whole entire neighborhood that has, these architectural merit items. So the elevation of the windows are to mimic the Cool Blow Apartments, which is 3 doors down with those large black windows. So that's what I went for with the design of that. The garage door, because there's no really parking, I made a little bit wider to fit a car. A 9-foot garage door, I'm having to fold in my mirrors on my big car. I can hardly get my car in the garage. And then the rear doors, the whole bridge is in the backyard. I just think that, to open up that rear porch. Once again, this neighborhood, in my opinion, doesn't warrant these type of items. I'll be the only neighborhood or the only house.
Thank you, Chamberlain.
Welcome.
All right, at this point, we will move into board discussion.
This is Julia, and I agree with staff that this is a tricky, unique situation, and I think staff kind of framed it really well for us. And Mr. Chestnut, I understand that other properties haven't had to deal with these parameters. I don't know about what permits may or may not be in place, but the ordinance changed, and so these are the regulations that we have to kind of contend with now. And it seems to me that staff is making a real effort to accommodate what you're trying to do and to work within the confines of the ordinance as it is currently in effect. So I'm aligned with staff. I think it is appropriate to have that extra height here in this situation, in this context. And I respect and pretty much agree with the other recommendations that staff has made. I also appreciate the client's apparent willingness to make some upgrades. And I think we should consider that pretty carefully and decide what we'd like him to do, if anything. And the only technicality that might hang me up is the little bit of extra height that I think he's asking for before he gets to that DFE. Like, I think the first floor should not exceed the required FEMA design flood elevation, which is pretty much how we treat every application that comes through.
This is Bill. I would say that I agree with the premise of what staff's comments are. I think I would look at this, I guess, a slightly more lenient eye and a couple of points. One being, I assume that garage door that's drawn is probably 10 feet wide. And I think on a tight street with maneuvering a vehicle in, that's probably a reasonable request. I do agree if fenestration can be adjusted. That was one of staff's comments about the sort of irregular patterns. If that can be addressed in a way that's conducive to a slight adjustment to the floor plans, I do think that's a very good comment as well, and takes care of a lot of my concerns about the fenestration. It's just sort of a more proper arrangement. And otherwise, I guess I just don't have as much to say in scrutiny, but I would go along with staff's comments if that's the inkling of the rest of the board. Thank you.
Bill, I'll just point out that the plans clarify that the garage door is 12 feet wide.
Okay, thank you, Julia. I don't have access to that copy, so I'm trying to read this screen, which I can't do. Yeah, I was thinking 10 feet would probably be a reasonable request, I guess above the 9, because I know 10 foot is a maneuverable door. 12 is pretty wide. So yeah, 10 feet, I guess, is what I was suggesting.
It's Glenn Gardner. I am generally aligned with Julia's comments and Bill's as well. I think with a bit of refinement, I can support the additional height request. And then, you know, I think 10 feet, if the current garage door is shown as 12, I think 10 seems to be a reasonable number to give a little bit of extra width for a larger car. And taking a close look at the materials and the finishes with staff, I would be comfortable voting for the additional height.
Yeah, Fillmore Wilson here. I am in line with staff. I think that the additional height, because of context, is acceptable, and I think staff's comments are reasonable, and that as staff has said, with future submittals reviewed by staff, I think the details of the fenestration and the other details can be worked out with staff.
All right, this is Julia. I will make a motion for deferral for general architectural direction with staff comments noted and future submittals to be reviewed by staff.
Okay. Hearing no other discussion, I'm hearing now a motion for deferral for general architectural direction.
Madam Chairman, one very quick question.
Go ahead.
Julia, one of the staff comments was the 9-foot garage door. Would you consider 10 foot potentially an amendment of that?
Sure,
one
sure, that's fine.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to repeat what I think the motion is deferral for general architectural direction with future submittals reviewed at the staff level, and staff comments approved, but a change in staff comment number 3 should be reduced to a width of 10 feet.
Exactly.
All right, we'll put it. All right, do I have a second?
This is Bill. I'll second.
Okay. All right, let's put it to a vote. We had a motion made by Julia and a second by Bill. All right, I'll now call roll. Glenn?
Yay in favor.
Fillmore?
Yay in favor.
Julia?
Yay in favor.
Bill?
Yay in favor.
And chair votes with the majority. We have 5-4. The motion carries. right, moving on. Agenda item number 3 has been deferred, so we'll move on to agenda item number 4, 250 Rutledge Avenue. And Kim, I'll move to you.
Thank you. Okay, item number 4 is 250 Rutledge Avenue, requesting conceptual approval for rear addition to an existing duplex. The house is a category number 4 in the Cannonboro, Elliottboro neighborhood, circa 1895 in the Old City District. Just to give you some context, here's an aerial nearly at the corner of Bogart Street on Rutledge. And here's an existing site photo. Just back from a different angle. And another aerial image. Here's a historic image. This is from the 1985 architectural inventory that was done. You can see that the piazza is facing the wrong side, which gave me pause. Here's another image from, it's a 1980s image. I'm not quite sure how old, same era. In doing Sanborn research, I noticed that the building is not there in 1902 or in 1944 or 1955. And then with some help from Kevin Eberly and some sleuthing, we determined that it was moved to the site in the 1960s and moved from further up on Rutledge at 501 Rutledge for the construction of the crosstown. So it was 277 Rutledge before the address is changed. So it's 501 Rutledge was the last address before the crosstown came in. And so you can see it there in 1929 and 1944 had a front porch on it. So Kevin's suspicion is that it was built between 1902 and 1929. Guesses probably 1910 to 1915 era. And so here are some photos of it currently, where it was, excuse me, at 501 Rutledge. Pretty cool, huh?
Mm-hmm.
And I will turn it over to Neil Stevenson and Amy K. Stoney. And you have the floor whenever you're ready.
Hey, sorry about that. I forgot to unmute. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you, Kim, for that introduction. We have the challenge we have. This project started, our client who's owned this house for a number of years has an investment project now moving back or wishes to move back into the second floor. And actually, Kim, could you advance to the floor plan, please? It's shown as a 3-bedroom house, but it's just a poorly laid out floor plan. Actually, on the third floor, like the 3rd bedroom. Oh, actually, could you go to the 2nd floor, please? The 3rd bedroom is that porch infill, which is really horrible, and the kitchen is really bad. So what he would like to do is make this more livable. And as you can see, the house is really short. We're not in a flood zone, so there's no interest in elevating the house, but we've run into some real height constraints in this rear addition. We wanted to kind of make the bedrooms a little better and then create a real kitchen living area. And he wanted to have some private outdoor space, which we thought we could probably squeeze out of a little roof deck. The whole addition is about 70 feet from the street, so it's minimally visible, but we're trying to stay respectful of the main house. And being that it's so short, it's been, it's been kind of a compromise of getting some head height. As it is, we're keeping the parking as is. There's no change in that. But the parking head height is like 7 feet. Then you get into the addition, and we have a 8-foot head height in the kitchen and dining living area, which is acceptable. But we're really just trying to squeeze to get a little more space so that he can have a little roof deck and a little family room living area that you could step out onto the roof deck on top. We've talked to the neighbors on Bogart Street, which are originally concerned about that. And so we moved the porch, if you want to go to you can see in the roof plan to the bottom left, where we moved the porch so that's completely in, like, facing the north part of the property to help block that so that there wouldn't be any loss of privacy to neighbors. But let's see if we could advance to, there's a section which shows the front elevations relative to the other houses on the street. You could, all right. Well, here you can at least get an idea. Well, we created a little hyphen to make that the differentiation between the new building and the existing. And we're just so squeezed with space. I know the historical groups would like there maybe to be a little smaller, a little lower, I should say, than the front house. And I think that it might be able to take another inch or two, but we're like so squeezed on the height. It's so far back. We kind of like to just like make that hyphen our differentiation and then try to just hold that ridge height if we could. But we just want to hear what your feedback is, and we're just trying to get the most out of the least amount of space that we can. So, we didn't try to make it look like the original house. We tried to make a little differentiation. But if you want to roll through those elevations again, that would be great, Kim. Here's a section showing how we're struggling with the height. But it's still much more livable, and at least the bedrooms in the main house are much better. And if you could roll backwards on this, that would be great. And see, or actually, if you could go forward and see if we could find those the section through. There you see that. So if you could move forward further, please. Let's just see how.
What would you like?
Oh, I'm sorry. If we could roll like towards the front of it. I mean, I should say
that
backwards, backwards in the slides, so that we can see a better image of the addition.
Elevation or plan?
There's a little computer model that we drew. There you go. That's showing from Bogart Street what you would see from between the houses. And if you would move, and that's a view from Rutledge along the back side of the house. And if you take it one more, we'll see there's to the front of the house. And we've tried to kind of keep the lines straight. And this is showing, this elevation is good. This shows Bogart Street and then the relation with this house. And then I think that the next slide is from Rutledge. And you can see the 250 Rutledge, how much smaller, how much shorter that is than the other. So it's not so much a mass problem on the street or with its neighbors. It's really just struggling with the existing house and trying to make it work. And being that it's so far back, we're hoping that is acceptable. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I do have a couple quick ones. You're proposing no door on the garage. Is that what I'm seeing?
Correct.
And the plan is clipped at the back corner. Is that because of some kind of setback anomaly?
Yes.
All right, cool. And then was there any, did you guys discuss at all like possibility of maybe removing the stair on the piazza and opening that up, or kind of correcting the piazza screen, or any changes or improvements to the front house?
I know, that would be nice. Unfortunately, that was not discussed at all as part of our program, although I totally agree that would be nice.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the board members? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to public comment. Do we have anyone?
We do. Anna Catherine Carroll has the floor whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Anna Catherine Carroll with the Preservation Society of Charleston. The Preservation Society appreciates the applicant reaching out to us on this request and responding to our feedback. However, we remain concerned with the relationship of the proposed addition to the main house, which is not properly subordinate. The proposal to park under the structure is driving increased height of the addition, and the proposed shed dormers introduce too much mass for a gabled roof. So we would ask that this request be restudied so that the addition may more sensitively relate and be more subordinate to the main house. Thank you.
And April Wood.
April Wood, Historic Charleston Foundation. I first want to compliment Kim on her sleuthing. I did not catch that. HCF has reviewed the application for conceptual approval for the rear addition to the duplex, and we appreciate the applicant reaching out to us regarding the proposed designs. While we understand that the height of the building is shorter than typical, we are concerned that the proposed addition is not sufficiently subordinate to the historic structure. The ridge of the new addition should be shorter than the ridge of the historic structure. We recommend restudy of the height before moving forward. Thank you.
And is that all we had for public comment?
It is.
Okay, we have heard from the public. Now we will move on and hear from city staff. Kim?
Yeah, just a couple comments. The guiding principles of Charleston zoning ordinance require additions to be subordinate in height, scale, and mass to the primary historic volume. This proposal warrants restudy so that the historic spatial relationships are retained. And the proposal has several elements such as the dormer windows, volume width, siding material, and roof deck that can be modified to better relate to the existing building. Staff's recommending denial for height, scale, and mass, and for general architectural direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Having heard from the public and hearing staff comments, we'll go back to the applicant. Mr. Stevenson, did you have anything to clarify or respond to?
No, I think, we've got the challenges that we're faced with. We couldn't reduce any of the parking. And we're just trying to create a better living condition for our client. I think that we could probably lower the roof up a little bit, and just to show, just to try to make the addition more subservient. It's just we're faced with some challenges here that's hard to get around.
Okay, we'll now move into board discussion.
This is Bill. I guess I'll go ahead and start. I mean, I think it's a well-conceived design, except for I do have a problem. The same as has been stated before about the subordination of the addition to the main house. So I believe staff comments are correct, and the comments of the preservation groups as well. But I do think some of the detailing vernacular that started here, if it's carried through in a more appropriate way, would be a good addition to the building. Thanks.
Glenn Gardner, I kind of echo Bill and the preservation groups and the city. I think that, sometimes a house just isn't large enough to support an addition that you want. And I think this is the case here where, I think this building, this home can handle a small addition, but the requested addition to me appears to be almost beginning to gobble up the house itself.
Yeah, I pretty much follow suit. I mean, I really appreciate that the applicants had to go, I think, through the zoning process and had to acquire the permanent easement for parking purposes. And I realized that it's been difficult even to get to this point. And I do agree that an addition would be okay here. It's just that we're trying to somehow subordinate a 3-story volume to a historic 2-story volume, and it's just not really clicking. Yeah, so I guess I'm with the others.
Fillmore Wilson, I don't really have anything to add. I am in agreement with my fellow board members and the preservation groups and staff on this one.
Okay, I will make a motion just following staff's recommendation for denial for height, scale, and mass and general architectural direction.
All right, we have a motion on the floor from Julia. Motion for denial for height, scale, and mass for general architectural direction. Do we have a second?
Fillmore Wilson, I'll second.
Thank you, Fillmore. All right, we will put it to a vote. Glenn?
Yay in favor?
Fillmore?
Yay in favor.
Julia?
Yay in favor?
Bill?
Yay in favor.
Chair votes with the majority, and the motion carries unanimously.
Thank you for your time.
All right, moving on to agenda item number 5, 234 Ashley Avenue.
Thank you. 234 Ashley Avenue is requesting final approval for paint color change to Inkwell on the main body. The building's a category 4 in the Cannonboro Elliott Borough neighborhood, circa 1855, and in the old historic district. Here's an aerial image showing you the location, just north of Spring Street on Ashley, about a block from South Ave, just in case. And here's some existing site photos. It's the house in question. And looking south on Ashley, north. And if the applicant is here and wants to take it from here, You can start whenever you're ready.
Hello?
Hi.
Okay, sorry. Honestly, this is my first attempt with Zoom, so forgive me. Kind of old school, just did FaceTime during the pandemic, so my apologies. The clients here at 234 Ashley, we kind of got inspiration to change the home from some images we saw of this home in the Northeast, because they're originally from New Jersey. It was all painted dark. We kind of just thought they wanted something different than the standard. So we kind of wanted to take the yellow and then kind of put it onto the door, which is that butterscotch color. And then take that black and kind of, but it's not black, it's Inkwell is more like a very, very dark blue. And do that as the body, and kind of fell in love with that. Initially, the thought was doing all of the trim Inkwell as well. So we painted that, but then in reality, the contrast with the Greek Villa trim, which was also painted there, I think was probably a better choice. We don't have much beyond that. We just fell in love with this color, and the homeowner really just loved it. And again, that, I don't know, I'm sorry.
Did you have anything else? Are you finished?
I'm finished.
I'm going to open it up for some board questions. Can you go back? What color will the trim be?
Well, initially we had said like everything Inkwell. So I just kind of realized that it's very dramatic, and that's probably not everyone's cup of tea. I know, especially in this part of town. So if you look to the right of the Inkwell, that's Greek Villa, that much white color, and we kind of thought that trim color would probably be best. I wish that I had the photo submitted, but there's they just recently I say within at least the past year, there's a house right next door to Leon's. If you look on Google Maps, it's still the old original, the old rundown they kind of did in that same style. Very dark body with a whiter trim.
Okay, so just to clarify, the trim will be Greek Villa, and the doors will be butterscotch, and the house itself will be the Inkwell.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. Any other board questions right now?
I was going to ask about the trim, but I think that has been clarified. So I'm good with questions.
All right, we will now move on to public comment. So Kim, do you want me to go ahead and read the email that we got first before anything else?
That sounds great. Thank you.
Okay. So we did get an email, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing a name, from Tater Sparks on Tuesday, January 26, 2021. And it reads, "Good morning. I would like to submit my opposition to the Inkwell paint color for 234 Ashley Avenue. Please have this read at the meeting. Charleston is known for its colorful homes. Ashley Avenue is no exception. A house painted this color would be jarring against the rest of the beauty on the block. Thank you for your time, and please let me know if you have any questions. Beth, signed, Tater." And that is the only letter that we got from the community. Kim, do we have any other public comment?
You. Anna Catherine Carroll, you have the floor whenever you're ready.
Anna Catherine Carroll with the Preservation Society of Charleston. The Preservation Society does not typically weigh in on issues of paint color within reason, but to us based on what was submitted. It was our understanding that the entirety of the body of the house, as well as the trim, would be painted inkwell. And so to us, this represents an exceptional case. And we feel that the dark monochromatic proposal is completely atypical of Charleston and should be denied. I think it would be wise for this to be continued to be studied, for there to be more dynamic juxtaposition of colors, as is typical of Charleston. I think maybe the applicant is moving in a positive direction based on the information that was presented this evening, but appreciate the opportunity to weigh in. Thank you.
Thank you. And April Wood.
April Wood, Historic Charleston Foundation. We had pretty much the same comments as the Preservation Society. We had understood from the application that everything would be this inkwell color except for the door, and we had concerns about that. We would appreciate some clarification of which trim elements would be the lighter color, and also what would the shutter and the door be, just to avoid having the monochromatic appearance of the building. Thank you.
Kim, is that it for public comment?
That is.
All right, having heard from the public, we'll now hear from city staff.
So I included the excerpt from the ordinance that gives the board power to deny applications based on violent details resulting in restless and disturbing appearance, intense and lurid colors. That's what we're basing our recommendation of denial off of. So just a couple comments. While paint is ephemeral and personal, this color mutes the architectural details and building texture that typical colors highlight, such as door trim and windows. Also, as stated in the ordinance, the BAR has authority to deny intense or lurid colors. So based on what was submitted originally, this is our recommendation.
Thank you, Kim. I will now go back to the applicant. You've heard from the public and staff comments. Is there anything that you would like to clarify or?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
I guess I'd like to clarify that, yes, we would like all of the trim to be white around the windows. The shutters would be inkwell, but in a higher gloss. I think that was the question. I just wanted to clarify that. I mean, all the window trims, the doors, around the doors, the balustrade, all that Greek villa.
Thank you. All right, we will now move into board discussion and a vote.
All right, this is Julia, and it sort of seems like the applicant had a bit of an epiphany during his presentation, because I think the paint schedule that was submitted did indicate all inkwell pretty much except for the door. And I was concerned because this house has some sort of distracting imperfections, like the cantilevered upper piazza and stuff like that. And I was afraid that that would really highlight them and make them even more noticeable. But I think personally, I'd be okay with a dark color for the body and a light, traditional white for the trim elements, which I think is where he's leaning toward now. So that's all I've got.
Glenn Gardner, I have the same sentiment as Julia. I think the revision to the lighter trim request is definitely a move in the good direction. I have learned that sometimes when you paint something dark, it draws more attention than not, which is, I know is kind of almost opposite of what staff had commented, but I think you have to be very, very careful on this house because there are some imperfections, and you have to go and consider, okay, what color are the downspouts going to be painted? And, you know, things that a lot of times we don't really get into those minuscule details about paint color. But as you go dark and have a greater contrast, even between the dark and the light trim that's now being discussed, there is a lot to be thought about and decisions that need to be made. And frankly, I think it actually may put more pressure on the owners to make some critical decisions about how to handle other little detailing that maybe they weren't even going to tackle at the moment. So I felt that necessary to kind of point out that the darker the color, the more I think it can actually highlight imperfections on a house that has been modified and tweaked over many years. But that said, I do have the same sentiment as Julia, that with the lighter trim color, I am and can become comfortable with a darker color on the body of the house.
Warren Wilson here. I am, I think generally or almost in line with my comments of my fellow board members. I'm not sure that painting this house would fundamentally would read as black, even if it is very, very, very dark blue. You know, to the streetscape, I think it would read as black. I think that is, even though some fairly dark and certainly very bright colors historically have been used in Charleston, I think a fundamentally black siding would be jarring. And I agree with Glenn, I think, and Julia, that it would tend to highlight the sort of design imperfections that the evolution has created, the evolution of the house has created. And then again, with Glenn, I think it creates a sort of a puzzle of decisions on what to paint, what color, and how that will read. So I think painting this house, deciding on this house fundamentally black, creates more problems than it would solve. I'm not opposed to a darker body color, but I think that this color is not the right selection.
This is Bill. I have nothing to add. Thank you.
And I will just point out from a personal standpoint, I have had a black greenhouse before, and it is a lot of pressure. It really is. It has to carry its own architecturally, because every little detail will begin to scream at you. I loved it, but it was a lot of pressure.
Kim, would you flip back to the Piazza photo, the Piazza screen photo?
The one that's painted?
Yeah, there, yeah. Is there one
Or
that
the
shows that
close-up.
little, can you close, yeah, get a little closer, like to the door?
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever paint color they land on, you see where that modern Lowe's doorknob kind of is like notched into the door surround? Man, I really hope that that gets corrected as part of this, because that would be distracting right off the bat.
All right, do we have a motion on the floor?
I think that, go ahead, Fillmore, please.
Fillmore Wilson here. I would follow staff's recommendation and make a motion for denial.
All right, we have a motion by Fillmore for denial. Do we have a second?
I'll second that. And just, I think the applicant has understood that there's not any major opposition to a dark color, just not quite this color.
All right, we'll now put the motion to a vote. Glenn,
Yay in favor with Julia's clarification.
Fillmore,
Yay in favor.
Julia,
Yay in favor?
and Bill.
Yay in favor.
Thank you. Chair votes with the majority and the motion carries unanimously. All right. Moving on to agenda item number 6, 1 Michael Place.
Just one moment. Okay, item number 6, 1 Michelle Place is requesting conceptual approval for the elevation of historic residence. The building isn't rated in the Charleston Village neighborhood, circa 1888 in the old historic district. It's an aerial image showing the location tucked back on Michelle Place. Here's a view from Queen Street. You can just barely see the house next to the cypress. And that's all I have for context. If the applicant wants to take it from here. Ms. Maybank, you can whenever you're ready.
Oh, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to give you a brief overview of what the owner is hoping to accomplish. He has a house on this small street where there are 4 similar houses of a similar age, and he's had a lot of trouble with flooding, and so is looking to raise his house. He has applied for and had approved his application to FEMA for funding for his to help with the expense of raising the house. And so to pursue that, he must get your approval. He doesn't have a whole lot of complicated desires other than getting the house up and raising it to continue to use the house the way he is using it. And this is the aspect of this house, which is a little bit different than some of the other houses on the street. There are only 4 houses, but his house can only, the access to the second floor of his house is from the street at this point. So he'd like to maintain the use of his house as it is. And in raising it, he then will have to be having stairs from the street to the first floor, but also to the second floor. So if you can keep going with the drawings, you can see here, if you look at the stair door picture in the middle of the sheet here, there's a kind of strange little, there's a door to a staircase, which is a strange steep little stair, and that just is the only way you can get to the second floor of this house, right? So if you keep going, you will see what we're proposing, which is that we, put the stairs together that he will need to get from the ground floor to the first floor and continuing up to the second floor, all in the same kind of location, pretty much where it is now, except that it expands because there are more stairs needed. And in order to do that, we would be kind of expanding the footprint of the piece of the house, which is on the north side. And if you architecturally, if you look at it, the house has got an apparent main body and an apparent addition. The history is that the apparent addition was actually there all along, but it is lower. The second floor of the house, even the floor level is lower. So it just has this quality architecturally that it's kind of an addition. So we would just kind of, the simplest kind of and most natural way to increase this house would be to just extrude that, make it bigger, and continue to express it as the same kind of a piece that it is now. If you would keep going with the drawings, you will see there are the existing plans, and you can see the little strange little staircase coming in on the second floor there and going up. And if you go on to the next, you'll see where we're going with just trying to make a staircase that keeps going on up to both the first and the second floors. And if you go on to the next sheet, those are the existing elevations, and the next sheet will show you existing and proposed elevations for this is the south side up top, the piazza side. And this faces, it's his existing parking area, which, if he can do what he's hoping to do, he'd be able to park underneath his house, and he would be able to reclaim that area, which is now a parking spot, for a nice, grassy piece of lawn. As I say, this faces sort of his own lot. The actual street side is this is facing south, the actual street side is on the east side. So if you go to the next sheet, you'll see the existing kind of secondary looking piece of the house will come forward, but continue to be expressed as the secondary piece of the house, and the entry would then be, you have a few stairs up to a door into a stair hall, which would then serve both the first and the second floors. He's not really proposing to change a whole lot more about the house. There is there are the windows, the original windows of the house have a kind of 9/9 pattern in the main large windows. He'd like to put those back. He'd like to pattern the new windows into the addition on that same kind of arrangement of mullions and panes, and essentially take his cues from the existing house. This is a pretty skinny set. We put it through for the zoning in the same day the zoning meeting happened was the deadline for your meeting. And so we just were hoping we might be able to make it in. We have not designed every aspect of this. We haven't designed the railings. We haven't designed, you know, the garage door, but we just are hoping to get your input and see what your thoughts are about this generally as a proposal and as a way to deal with what he's trying to do.
Thank you, Ms. Maybank. Do we have any board questions at this point?
I have one question for the applicant, if I may.
Go ahead.
Ms. Maybank, you received special exception from BZAZ last month, is that correct?
Yes, we did.
So that means that EAR has purview over every elevation, not just what's visible from the public right of way.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board at this time? All right, we will move on to public comment. Kim?
We have Anna Catherine Carroll. You have the floor whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Anna Catherine Carroll with the Preservation Society of Charleston. The Preservation Society feels this is a straightforward approach to elevation, but we would encourage further study of the proposed front entry on the east elevation to reflect a more elegant stair configuration with a refined hood and door surround, drawing from contextual examples. Thank you.
Kim, do we have any other public comment?
I believe that's it.
All right, we will now move on to city staff comments and recommendations.
This is a simple elevation, but the most visible corner on Michelle Place is where the additional stairs will be located. The alteration of that space is positive with the removal of the unusual entrance door. The existing fenestration is somewhat disordered, and it would be best for the new windows to complement the existing. The new windows in the stair tower should relate to the north and east elevations. The precedent window should be the 4/4 light pattern and duplicate the sashes on the east elevation, except for the side lights. Further develop the columns on the south elevation to be less planar, relevant to the beam, and articulated identically. It just should be noted that the drawings show the westmost column as different. The handrail selection and pickets are important to consider in final details. Refine the detailing of the door surround, hood, and bracket elements at the entrance. And drawing should reflect the retention and elevation of the chimney rather than rebuilding it. If it's determined during work that rebuilding is necessary, submit the additional scope of work to the BAR staff. Staff's recommending conceptual approval with final review by staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Having heard from the public and city staff, I'll go back to the applicant. Ms. Maybank, did you have anything you wanted to clarify after hearing from the public and city staff, or anything you wanted to respond to?
No, I thank you all for your comments and I agree with them. The only thing would be that the issue of the precedent windows, I would ask that the staff maybe take a look with me at at what are the original windows on the building. The owner of the building replaced some of the sashes with windows that he built himself. The originals were not the 4/4, but were the 9-pane sashes. So I think I would just like to work with you all on what you think the most appropriate, resolution of that is, since that's part of your comments. We'd like to just go over that with you and get you all comfortable with whatever we end up with.
Thanks for that clarification, Ms. Maybank.
All right, thank you, Ms. Maybank. We will now move into board discussion and a vote.
This is Bill. I can jump in on this, but I was just going to say that I agree with staff's comments and recommendation. I appreciate the thoroughness of your comments, Kim. Thank you.
Julia, I feel like this solution to the design problem looks pretty good, and I know that this was tricky to figure out because of the quirky, unique conditions that are existing. My one suggestion, in addition to everything that staff has suggested, is that maybe where you're just filling in that corner, maybe you could consider retaining a corner board on the north elevation just to sort of demarcate that as being altered from the original building geometry. That would be a thought. And otherwise, I agree with all of staff's comments, maybe with the exception of number 2, because I see what Ms. Maybank is saying about the 9/9. So I'm kind of okay with the fenestration that's proposed.
Fillmore Wilson here. I'm in agreement with staff and with Julia's comment. It looks like the issue with the fenestration can be worked out by determining what is precedent and original and sort of what is not. So I am in line with staff's recommendations and comments, and I think this is a very successful way to elevate a rather unusual structure.
I agree as well.
All right, I will make a motion for conceptual approval with staff comments 1 and 3 through 6, and a board comment to retain a corner board on the north side to demarcate the infill, and final review by staff.
Lynn Gardner, I second the motion.
All right, thank you, Julia and Glenn. So we have a motion for conceptual approval with staff comments 1 and 3 through 6, an additional board comment to retain a corner board on the north side to demarcate the infill, and subject to final review by staff. Did I get that right?
Yes. All
right, so we have the motion by Julia, second by Glenn. I will now put it to a vote. Fillmore?
Yay in favor.
Bill?
Yay in favor.
Julia?
Yay in favor.
And Glenn?
Yay in favor.
And chair votes with the majority, and the motion carries unanimously. All right, we will now move on to agenda item number 7. 5 Glib Street. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Glebe, 5 Glebe Street is requesting final approval for renovation, including modifications to entry steps and ramp to Category 2 in the Charleston Village neighborhood circa 1840 and in the Old Historic District. Here's an aerial image of the building on the west side of Glebe, just north of Wentworth Street and south of the college. And some existing site photos. Looking south on Glebe and north on Glebe. Here's some historic images, courtesy of HCF, 1977 to 79, and then 1973 survey card image. And the applicant's here, Mr. Beckham. You may begin whenever you're ready.
Mr. Beckham, you may be on mute. Mr. Beckham, we cannot hear you. I see you're unmuted now, but
maybe you could call in instead.
Mr. Beckham, we are still not able to hear you. Kim, I know we had this issue in the last meeting, and I believe we tabled it and moved on.
Yeah, that's right. You tried doing that?
Okay. And then when Mr. Beckham's able to join or call in, we can go to agenda item number 8. And then if Mr. Beckham's available, we can go back to item 7. All right, so for the moment, we are tabling agenda item number 7 and moving on to agenda item number 8 for Gadsden.
4 Gadsden Street is requesting conceptual approval for alterations to existing building, including elevation for FEMA requirements. The building's not rated in the Charleston Village neighborhood pre-1902 and in the Old Historic District. Here's an aerial image just to give you some context at the corner of Gadsden and Bufane. And this is an existing site photo. You can see how far back it is from the corner. This is looking northeast. And if Mr. Schmidt is around, you want to take it from here whenever you're ready.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay. This is the site where a large single-family residence was torn down a few years ago. It's been an empty site. That building was built about 1854. The Fort Gadsden is a dependency that was built for that house, but it's not the original dependency. It dates to about 1890 or so. It's rather unique. There aren't that many wooden dependencies in Charleston that went with these large mansion houses. This one was before we got it. It has been abandoned for quite a few years, but it was a duplex. And if you want to click through these. So that Fort Gadsden, you see it there. That is not the size that it is now. It has grown from that. There, you see they added a piece onto the end of it. The porch is not original. The house itself was about only half of what you see across the back of the lot. So it's been added on to 3 times. If you click on, again, the house is has some foundation issues. The original house that was torn down had foundation issues, so it only makes sense. We're going to need to put new foundations under this residence. The decision has been made not to request a historic exemption, but to go ahead and raise this structure up because this is a low area of the city. We are going to take it up to the height that FEMA requires. We're not going any higher than that. If you'd like to click through some more, you can just keep going through these and get the idea of the condition. You notice the base of the house was brick. So in our proposal, we are electing to put a brick base under this house also. I'd say, just in the interest of time, if you want to jump to A 2.1. There you go. What we're going to be doing is lifting the house per FEMA to the height that's required. We are removing, if you see on the far left-hand side of the screen where it was a duplex, there were 2 doors going into, one went up a stairs, one went in off of the porch. We're getting rid of the door off the stairs. None of that's original to the original building. The stair was, but not the door or the surround or anything like that, the steps. The proposal on the left is to come in the other door, reuse the porch. This house not having a pitched roof on it, it always had a flat shed roof, is very boxy. Our concern was lifting it up. It makes it even more boxy. So we tried to diminish the scale of the lift by putting in these built-in brick planters at the base of it to help tie the house back down somewhat. The exterior, everything will be restored on the house, the wood siding. We're going to replace the nailed-on vinyl shutters with operable shutters, obviously. The steps are going to be masonry steps. We'll use wrought iron for the handrails. The porch will have wood handrails and the wood columns that are there. Single pane windows are remaining. Everything about it that is on the existing will be on the proposed. Flood vents are put on the back 2 sides of the house. You can see one on the bottom right-hand corner in the back corner. And then if you go to the next sheet, we've cleaned up the back side. There's a lot of windows that had been cut in over the years. Some of them aren't even windows. They're just plexiglass and 2x4s. So we're going to clean up that side that's on the north side of the neighbor and just have one window in the center for the stair is where you would expect it to be. Again, you see the flood vents at the bottom there. We're taking off a added on 2-story porch that you can see on the left-hand side of the existing in the bottom corner there and coming back with just a one-story porch on that side. And we think that also helps bring the scale down. There are no existing fireplaces left from this house. They were all demolished by the prior owner and just left the holes in the floor. We will not be coming back with any fireplaces. If they do, they will just do a ventless fireplace. So there are no chimneys that are involved in this effort. And I think if you're okay, I'd rather just turn it over and respond to any questions on this one.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Board members, do you all have any questions for the applicant?
I just have one. Can you just clarify what flood zone this property is in? Is it AE 11?
I do not remember. It's on the sheets. Remember, this is transitional because it's going to be changing when the FEMA maps change. The adjustment on this site, it's all been clarified. We are where we're going to need to be. So it'll be 2 feet above what the new flood will be for the site, 1 foot above the existing flood. I wanted to say 14, but that doesn't sound right, so I'm not sure. And that's too small for me to read on the drawing there.
Yeah, okay. The maps have already changed. I mean, it's in effect now, the new.
Right. We've adjusted it either way and have worked with HLA, the civil engineers on this one, as well as the townhouses at 120 Buffane. So.
Do we have any other board questions right now? All right, hearing nothing else from the board at this time, we'll move on to public comment. Kim?
We have no public comment.
All right. We will move on to city staff comments and recommendations.
Several comments. Add niches under windows at south elevation. Shutters must be operable, so add some hardware, please. Shutters under porch should be bifolding. Simplify handrail and specify wrought iron. West elevation crawl space door should be relocated or centered and detailed and softened with landscaping and irrigation. Staff's recommending conceptual approval with staff comments and final review by staff.
Thank you, Kim. Mr. Schmidt, did you want to respond to any of these comments or clarify anything?
It looks like everything we're already doing there. I'm not sure. Can you expound on niches? What are we talking about?
Something similar to what you have proposed for the front of number 6 Gadsden, just to kind of dress up that foundation wall.
Oh, in the foundation. Okay, in the foundation, not I thought meant under the windowsill. Oh, gotcha.
Correct.
Very good. Yeah, we can definitely look at that. That's fine.
To avoid a blank foundation wall.
Correct. No, we're fine with working with all of that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Schmidt. We'll move into board discussion now.
This is Bill. I'll go ahead. Oh, Julia, go ahead.
No, please.
Sorry. Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it's a very good effort. I think it actually is attractive and kind of lends itself to sort of the attractiveness of the house overall. I do agree with staff's comments and those degree of refinement to the foundation panels, especially reveal panels or whatever it be. Yeah, I agree with staff's comments and recommendations.
All right, this is Julia, and I wanted to say that I appreciate the elevation mitigation techniques that have been employed, like the brick finish and the planters, and send a special thank you to the designer for cleaning up that north elevation. My one hesitation is that I could have sworn when I reviewed this that it seems like it was elevated more than what FEMA actually requires. So I'd just like that to be verified. Like, I think the first finished floor is at 15.4, which wouldn't really be exactly 2 feet above any BFE. So I just like that to be a condition of approval, that we're not elevating extra for mechanical or first floor framing, because that's just our party line. But otherwise, I think it's very nice.
Glenn Gardner, I'm in agreement. I don't really have anything additional to add to that.
Fillmore, likewise, I'm in agreement and have nothing to add.
Okay. I will make a motion for conceptual approval with staff comments and a board comment to limit elevation to current FEMA requirements at the first floor, and final review by staff.
Thank you, Julia. All
Glenn
right.
Gardner, second.
Glenn, did you say you second?
I do, yes.
All right, we have a motion by Julia for conceptual approval with staff comments and adding a board comment to limit the elevations to the FEMA requirements at the first floor, and final review by staff. All right, we'll put it to a vote. And that was, we had a second from Glenn. Okay, Fillmore?
Yay in favor.
Bill?
Yay in favor.
Julia?
Yay in favor.
Glenn?
Yay in favor.
And chair votes with the majority, and the motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Kim, were we able to get Mr. Beckham on the phone, or?
We have him online, but I do think we should just keep rolling onto 6 Gadsden before we head back to him.
Yes,
if that makes sense.
Yes. Okay, at this time, we'll move on to agenda item number 9, which is 6 Gadsden.
6 Gadsden Street's requesting conceptual alterations to the existing building, including elevation for FEMA requirements. Building's not rated in the Charleston Village, constructed pre-1902 and in the Old Historic District. And this building sits just to the west of the previous building we looked at the street. Here again is the corner looking northeast. And this is an old photograph of improvements that they're making, the drainage facilities, and you can see the house back there from 1939. And Mr. Schmidt, you can have the floor.
Thank you. But if you want to just start scrolling through these, our indication is that until we had that photo there, it was pegged at 1944. It probably is 39. It's not 1902. It was built as World War II housing. And it was built as a duplex, 2 apartments, I should say, not a duplex, one over the other. Hence, again, we have 2 separate entry door systems. The building is classic for being built in that time period as downtown surplus housing for the Navy base type worker, to the point that it has 1 large bedroom, 1 small bedroom, a small kitchen, a small dining, no living. You got up, you went to work, you came home, you went to bed. The hence on the, if you want to keep scrolling, hence the front elevation there, that's why it has that look. It's offset You notice that the windows are not centered because you had a single bedroom and a double bed and a one bedroom had two windows, one had one. For years, I used to drive by this house and assumed it was one of those that was a porch infill where they incorporated it under a gable roof. That's not the case. The way it's framed is exactly the way it is. And in fact, all the materials inside are that same time period. There's no sheetrock, there's no plaster. It's all that mineral board that was used during World War II for the Army bases. The exterior siding is asbestos, 1/4 inch asbestos siding. Our proposal is to remove that siding, and we met with the city staff. We've also met on both of these projects, by the way, with the two preservation groups, the immediate neighbors and the neighborhood association, hence why maybe you're not getting letters on some of this. But everybody's aware of what we're trying to do here. So what we're going to propose to do is lift this house also for the same reasons. The corner always floods out, and take it up to FEMA height. The foundation on this one, we're electing to, if you want to keep scrolling, these are the houses across the street. You can see the streetscape. We didn't do a streetscape on the other because there was no house near it, if you want to go back to that, but it fits in well in the streetscape by being lifted. We actually think it improves the look of this house and makes it a little bit more Charleston because it was always a little squat and dumpy for its width. So if you'd like to skip to A2.1. So when we did the townhouses on Buffane Street, we realized this house needed some help. The reason that little appendage is on the bottom of the building on your bottom right left-hand side there is that one door you're looking at in the middle of the building goes straight into the first floor apartment. The other one is 90 degrees to that, and the way it's framed, the stair is on the face of the building, the actual building itself. So if it wasn't for that, you would open the door and immediately trip on the first step. So we knew we were going to have some issues that we had to deal with. We reserved some space in the site plan to add this porch feature on there so that we would give this house some a better look. We knew we'd be raising it, and we thought that whole idea would work very well. We ended up, even with that, we ended up having to turn, you see on the top left there with the way I'm talking about where the stair is. As it turned out, we still couldn't make it work because for the height of the house, we couldn't get out the front or the back without being in the sidewalk or in the street. So we finally had to turn the stair inside the house and reframe it. That being said, this house did not have a street door entrance ever. And with the issues we're having with the height and the fact that this is part of this compound of 4 Gadsden and then the 4 townhouses on Buffane as part of a one-site compound, we finally decided it wasn't appropriate to have that street door. It was too narrow and we couldn't get, like I said, we couldn't get the steps to it. Also, the height is not high enough to get a door in at that level. So it's not a full, we couldn't have got a door in at the street level. So what we chose to do at that point was put in a nice set of steps on the back, again, using wrought iron, giving some mass to those steps, not just a set of wooden steps. This will become a single family house, as will 4 Gadsden. Both of them are going from apartments to single family. We are proposing to change the siding from the 1/4 inch asbestos to 1/4 inch hardy board, cement board. The reason for that is we are not changing the windows. We are not, if we went to a 3/4 board like the rest of the houses, one, it wouldn't really reflect what the story of this house was. And 2, we would have to trim out and move all the windows outward to get the same relationship that it had and the corners of the building and the cornice work. So we decided that probably the best thing to do is we would go with 1/4 inch siding. We'd have the same shadow line that the building has now, but it'll be a lot more attractive than it was in the wood grained look asbestos siding that's out there. The base of the building, again, in this case, we elected to do this one in stucco. We think that's more appropriate to bring to the street. It's not as old. However, we did decide it still looked a little clumsy. So what we did is we're proposing to use pencil scoring in the stucco. It's a very large pattern on this one. The idea is help break down the scale of the building and not make it look too busy. This has the indents that Kim brought up under the windows, the niches, if you will. And again, on this one, the flood vents have been put on the north side and the back side there. We did add a bay window, walk-in window on the back of the building. I'm not sure it's even going to be visible from the public right away, but I bring it up because it really helped the floor plan. The space for dining is so small in this house that kind of needed something. So we did that. And then to reflect where the stair was, we've added that oval window on the south elevation there. We are removing a chimney on this house. It was not a fireplace. It was just a simple square brick chimney for 2 potbelly stoves, 1 in each apartment that were in the hallway. And then all the doors had been vented with transoms to let the heat go from one space to another. Very typical for 1939, 1940s. So we're going to take that out and didn't see the need to replace that. Didn't really consider that one a character defining feature for the house.
Mr.
Underneath
Smith, just a heads up, you've got about a minute and a half left.
I'll take even less than that. Yeah, take even less than that. We are putting a wood infill under the porch on this one, as we did on 4, and they have the option of making it operable to store things under it. Again, this is not a walk-in for me, certainly. It would be just a duck-in storage, but we wanted to sort of break up that mess because there is no room for landscaping on this site. This will be right to the common pavered property area where all the cars come in. And so we needed to get some kind of relief there of texture. And with that, I will turn it back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Fellow board members, do you all have any questions for the applicant at this time?
Yes, this is Bill. I have a question. Joe, is there any evidence, is the asbestos siding, could it be original to the building?
Oh, it is original. It's original to 1939 or 40, yes.
Okay.
It's your typical, there are individual shakes that are about 24, 28 inches wide with a slight scallop on the bottom edge. They are not in very good shape. And I mean, some of them have been broken and there's not much they can do with it when that happens. But yes, they're very brittle. They're there.
Thank you.
Any other board questions or clarification needed now? All right, let's move on to public comment. Kim?
We have no public comment.
All right. Let's move on to city staff comments and a recommendation.
I have a few staff comments. Eliminate the oval window on the south elevation as it's not consistent with any of the architectural elements. Eliminate the bay at the rear and replace with 2 double hung windows. Reduce height and width of niches in front foundation wall. And maybe study where those really should go in relation to the windows above. Develop the supports under the porch to articulate more as columns rather than piers. Recess or restudy wood panel front screen, wood panel screening in front. Staff's recommending conceptual approval with staff conditions and final review by staff.
All right, thank you, Kim. Mr. Schmidt, hearing the staff comments, is there anything that you want to clarify or Any response you have?
Really like the bay window and the oval, but that's at the, we tried to add something to this house to give it its own individuality. When you say the wood panel on the front, I think we don't mean the street front. Is it? We're talking about under the porch?
Yes, the foundation screening.
Okay. Yeah, that was actually, both of the boards recommended that. We had it solid stucco as indent panels before, and they both suggested that, but we'll work with staff and figure out what staff is talking about.
I think it's just a lot of wood right there at the front that maybe there's an extra beam that's added to the top. There's a sill that's inserted above, below the wood paneling. So it kind of anchors it more, just kind of soften it.
Okay, well, we can work with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Let's open this up for board discussion and vote.
Let's see, what do I think? I think I am at peace with the proposal to use narrow board hardy plank on this, given the conditions and the evolution of this house. I'm okay with the removal of that utilitarian chimney, and personally, I don't really have a problem with the addition of the kind of decorative elements of the oval window and the bay window. They won't be very noticeable from the public right of way, I don't think. And I personally feel like they're reasonable given the entirety of the scope of this project. My one concern remains like it was with the previous application that, if you look at the very last page where the building sections are, it indicates that this is an AE 11 zone, and that in fact they're requesting 2 feet and almost 5 inches of extra height for accommodating ductwork below and getting the framing and the ductwork both below the above the elevation that FEMA requires. So I'm gonna just keep that position like I had with the previous, that be brought down.
This is Bill. Go ahead. I agree with staff's comments and several of Julia's comments as well. I guess the one thing that, and maybe it's because of the good story you told Joe about the Navy Yard people coming and working and flopping in at night, and that was their life there. And I started to get then the notion of the window fenestration being odd, suiting rooms that were designed for purely utilitarian kind of lifestyle. And it started to tell a little story about this house. And I started to think about that sort of World War II construction and vintage, and there's a nice story there. Now, I don't know how that telegraphs through. Obviously, the asbestos siding being original, I do believe it would have been, yeah. That changes the character of the whole house. So I would say in that light of that sort of theme, I could definitely understand the siding product and replacement that you're proposing. I think that makes sense. The thing I guess I have a little bit of departure with is some of the house sort of now has sort of formality to it. I guess the scored foundation is kind of throwing me off, and some of the heavier arched entry stairs and all these things that are kind of, and then the oval window kind of have more of a finished formal appearance. And then I'm remembering that story about the guys, flopping in from working at the Navy Yard. So I just didn't know if there's some detailing that could be maybe a little more true to that history. I would like to see maybe some of this formality sort of taken down a couple of notches. sort of complement that history of the house. But otherwise, you know, I think you're headed in the right direction with the elevation and what you're doing.
Fillmore here. I'm generally in line with staff on this as well. I do think that I kind of agree with Bill. I think, you know, some of the formality that's been introduced into the house does certainly change the character. I certainly think it's attractive, but I think that maybe toning it down a little bit, the removal of the oval window or a different treatment there. I understand the bay on the back. That dining room is very small, and it gives you about the only opportunity to maybe put a little piece of dining room furniture in there besides the four-place table. But it does add to the formality of the house. So I have a kind of torn between that, and dressing the house up certainly does make it more appealing to the market. I don't think there's any question about that. To Bill's note about the siding, you know, without sort of going to some contemporary duplicate or interpretation of the old asbestos shingles, probably the thin planking is an appropriate alternative. But overall, I'm certainly in favor of conceptual approval for this.
I appreciate Bill's suggestions about kind of staying a little more true to the original nature of this structure. And honestly, I think removing, you know, almost 2.5 feet from the height of it will lend itself to that, at least to some extent. So I'll try to make a motion here for conceptual approval with staff comments. Let's do staff comment 1. And a board comment to restudy the foundation treatment at Gadsden Street to be less formal.
And Julia, did you also have the same board comment as on the prior application to limit?
Yes, thank you, Lindsay. Yes, exactly.
Okay, so I'm hearing we have a motion on the floor for conceptual approval with staff comment 1 only and 2 board comments. The first to restudy the foundation treatment at Gadsden Street, and a second board comment to limit the first floor elevation to FEMA requirements and subject to final review by staff.
Perfect.
Do we have a second?
Second, Glenn.
Okay, we'll put it to a vote. Fillmore.
Yay in favor.
Bill.
Yay in favor.
Julia.
Yay in favor.
And Glenn.
Yay in favor.
Chair votes with the majority and the motion carries unanimously. Okay, I think we're going to revisit agenda
Thank you
item
very
number
much.
7, 5 Glebe Street. Oh, thank you, Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you.
Mr. Beckham, was he able to join?
Yes, let me get him. There we go. Mr. Beckham, can you hear us?
Hello.
Mr. Beckham,
Hello.
we can hear you.
Glad to hear, and good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, I can hear you.
Wonderful.
Kim, I think we should start at the top again with your introduction on this item.
Agenda item number 7 is 5 Glebe Street, requesting final approval for renovation, including modifications to entry steps and ramp. It's a category 2 in the Charleston Village, circa 1840 in the Old and Historic District. And here's an aerial image showing the property just north of Wentworth Street on the west side of Glebe, south of the college. And some existing site photos. You can see the stair in question in this one. It's looking south on Glebe Street and looking north. Some historic images. First one is courtesy of Historic Charleston Foundation. And the third on the right is the survey card from 1973. Mr. Beckham wants to take it from here.
Sure. Thank you. Sure. Thank you, Kim, and thank you guys for your patience. Again, I am Steve Beckham, and I am the architect on behalf of W.S. Beckham Architect, as well as Mount Zion AME Church. What we have submitted are proposed renovations to 2 separate areas, both the entry steps and the ramp, the exterior ramp, I'd say left of the front elevation, on the front elevation, if you would. And our intent and our concern here are to address some existing conditions and deficiencies as they're related to accessibility. With regards to dimensional clearances and tolerances, and ultimately health and safety, as well as liability and exposure for the church and its patrons. Kim, if you would you go to my pictures that I submitted, and my last picture, keep scrolling if you would. Keep going. There, back one more. Thank you, Kim. And guys, if you would, if you'd look, there's quite a bit going on here. Initially, you'll note that there is no landing. There what appears to be potentially a half of a landing, and then treads and risers that are inconsistent at best, which bring you to grade, as well as the handrails. Based on my pictures and correspondence through the city, I understand that the handrail may not be of historical significance, yet what we have is a handrail that obviously is non-compliant with what we'd like to see with regards to, again, accessibility and clearances. Again, you see the handrail doesn't make it to the top riser / half landing, nor does it provide the required horizontal extensions at both the top and the bottom. So with regards to existing conditions, that the entry steps, the challenges that we face there are what the proposed renovation to this area is based on. And that being said, if you would, Kim, if you'll go back to my plan, and I'll kind of address the steps, and then we'll get to the ramp. But in plan, next drawing, please. And you'll see again towards the entry there, and I've shown the area of the renovation, and we have shown existing in the dotted lines, obviously, and then the new construction, proposed new construction in the solid heavier lines. And again, what we propose is the creation of a landing, as well as treads and risers of a compliant dimension and tolerance, as well as a handrail. So that's kind of our approach to what we propose as far as the renovation. Now, we are respectful of the historical significance of these steps and their components. What we propose to do, and through my correspondence with the city, the church, some similar jobs in the area, what we propose to do is to carefully remove and reuse the existing veneers for both the treads and risers. And then you can see in the pictures there, it's painted over, and you can begin to see some of the original veneers beneath the painted current surface of the steps. So again, we opt to preserve and reuse existing treads and veneers and supplement with like new material. And then secondly, if you'll notice I think we showed in a couple of sections there, we propose to reuse treads and veneers. And then secondly, we opt and propose to preserve structurally what is beneath the existing treads and the existing veneers. And Kim, if you would scroll down maybe the next drawing. Yes. And upper right-hand corner, again, basically showing the preservation, encapsulation, if you will, of the existing substrate of the steps, undisturbed, with fill on top, and then formed concrete, and again the placement of the existing veneers and supplement with like new material. And again, that's in theory what we propose here is again to remove and reuse veneers and treads and preserve undisturbed beneath structurally what's happening beneath those steps. I understand the handrails, again, are not of historical significance based on my photos and photos that you guys have shared with me. My proposal is very similarly to reuse existing handrail and supplement with like new material. So guys, in summary, that's what we propose with regards to the entry steps. One other thing, on a similar note, Kim, if you would scroll back up floor plan, please. Yes. Guys, also there's been some discussion about the reversing of the swings on the entry doors. I understand that this has been discussed for some time for obvious reasons. The current entry doors swing in, which is your primary means of egress from your sanctuary. And again, the reversal of these swings has been discussed, but it presents you with an very awkward situation currently with those doors swinging out now over three inconsistent steps. So you got, kind of got an issue there that I understand the comments were made with don't want to reverse and swing in the direction of travel the entry doors when you would be exiting in the direction of travel over 3 steps before you exit the doors. Make sense? Hello?
I think we've got it. Mr. Beckham, if you have anything else at this time, I'll open it up for some board questions if you all have any.
No, real quick. I was going to move to the ramp. In summary, real quick with the ramp.
Okay.
Existing ramp. We understand that this ramp is not of historical significance. The current ramp, based on my on-site observations, appears to be about 20 to 25 feet short. The ramp is too steep. The ramp far exceeds a 1-on-12 slope. So our proposed renovation is to come in with a with the construction of a new ramp that again satisfies the slopes and tolerances and dimensionally would be compliant, and provide a new ramp. I would mention that there's some questions. We respect the fact that there is an existing garden wall on the property line. And if you would, Kim, scroll down to, I believe, the last structural drawing. Next. Okay, there. Lower left-hand corner, if you will. We propose to again, not disturb the existing garden wall, if you will, and come in with a footing and basically cantilever across the top of the new footing and into the garden wall, with every effort again to leave the current existing garden wall undisturbed. So guys, in summary, that is what we are proposing at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Beckham. Now I'll open it up for any board questions.
I have one. Go ahead. I have one quick question. On the ramp where the cantilever goes against the existing wall, is that a brick wall or a block wall?
Well, I can't confirm that. I can tell you that it appears to be approximately 12 inches thick. Maybe it's a thicker wall with some type of scratch coating, hard coat type coating, if you will. But I can't confirm that, sir. But again, for us, naturally, we don't want to put any additional stress on that wall. So that's why we propose to put the new footing in there adjacent and off of the garden wall.
Right. I mean, I think that's fine. I just, your drawing didn't show an expansion joint there where it contacts the wall.
You know what, sir? Quite honestly, I had the structural engineer generate these drawings, and quite frankly, I noticed that as well. I would ask for an expansion joint between the new concrete and that garden wall. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
This is Bill. I just had one question. You had mentioned veneers. What is the veneer material? And I know you're reusing part of that for the upper portion of the steps and then adding a new to match below. Have you, I guess should ask what the material is and if you've found matches for it.
Good question, Bill, and thank you. And Kim, if you would, you could go back to any of the pictures that I provided of the entry steps. Some of the close-ups, you can begin to see the paint or the coating on top of the original steps in some of the areas there. I'm told that this is what's referred to as a brownstone or Charleston brownstone. And we actually met a contractor, a craftsman on site who had done a number of similar projects, both with this brownstone and granite in some of these areas on some of these types of buildings. And again, he is the one that informed me that some of this additional material can be obtained. So again, yes, I can't say we know ideally exactly what we're dealing with there, other than I understand it's veneers, and you can begin to see with some of the coating that's peeling off that there's, you can see some of the joints of where these veneers are joined. So again, sir, I understand it's brownstone, and we looked around a couple of the residences and buildings again right there on that block, and it's some very similar material.
I was going to, Bill, in a similar context, I was going to ask about that because I don't think this is veneered. I think it's brownstone slabs that likely began to decay over time and then were covered with a slurry of concrete and repair and then painted. So I have a little bit of concern about pouring a new set of steps on top of a historic set of brownstone steps that would then likely, leach water between the brownstone and the concrete. And I don't think it's how the Secretary of Interior would recommend handling this situation. At the same time, I certainly understand the need for for safe access into and out of the building. And when you get a riser height like that bottom one that is off, and that's, Kim, I was going to ask, is there any better photo that shows a little more of the concrete area in front of the brownstone step? Maybe that historic photo. Okay. So they're painted.
Glenn, I respect where you're coming from on that, whether it's veneers or slabs. And again, we're kind of going into it not knowing exactly what we'd be dealing with regards to the thickness, the length of the actual material. So, again, I think whether it's they're more slabs versus veneers. And again, they did a very similar project, but with granite right across the street most recently. And it was more of, I won't say slabs. They were more of, they were more of like 4 to 5 inch thick type. And this is right across the street from 5 Glebe, recently done here.
So I think what happened over time is the sidewalk has been repoured. And so the concrete has been raised, and that's what has shallowed up that bottom riser to, certainly throw things off. I think once we get into the actual board discussion point, we need to talk internally about, what is the correct manner of dealing with a historic set of steps like these and adapting them.
This is Bill. Can I insert real quick, Glenn? And it's maybe an understanding I want to have, because having the applicant having stated that the intent was understanding those were veneers, was to remove the veneers, put a new set of concrete sub-base steps, and then reapply those old veneers to the upper portion of the steps. So I guess the question would then go to, if these are indeed slabs, would the applicant be willing to reuse the slabs?
For me, the answer is yes. The answer is to make every effort and attempt to preserve the original material, whether they're slabs or veneers or whatever that construction may be. Is to make every effort to use, you look at the half of landing there as to how this thing's to be built, such that, could that portion be, whether they're slabs or veneers, to a certain degree, you kind of got to be, you work with what you got to an extent. But we're after the same look and character and design elements as the original.
Okay, thank you. I guess the main point I was trying to make was, and it was to Mr. Gardner's point he repeated, is the intent would be, if that is whatever form of brownstone or whatever veneer it is for that to be reused. So there would never be, if it was discovered to be brownstone slabs that are of irregular nature, they would never be buried underneath a new concrete pouring, is what we're saying.
Correct.
And then I would say, yes, I agree.
And then I have more comments, but since we're still in the question phase, Bill, I'm going to try to pull up a few other photos on my other device here and save my comments for our board comment session.
Yeah, Kim, would you roll through a couple more of the photos that you guys provided?
Hold on 1 minute.
Yeah, and for the sake of conversation, you had one photo with the not mine, yours. The house directly across the street, those steps were recently reworked.
That was a Craig Bennett project.
There it is, right there. But now they have since been, those steps in that picture on the right have since been, when was that picture?
This was probably 2019.
Yeah, those steps are new. And I'm going to say that.
They're not
the
new.
Same gentleman that,
Sorry, it's the same material. They've been reset.
yeah,
Stabilized.
yes. Existing tread material there on the right has been reused. Those stairs reconfigured and that material reused at original.
Lynn and Bill, did y'all get your question answered?
I think so. Yes.
Okay, let's move into public comment. Kim, did we have any?
We do. Anna Catherine Carroll has the floor. Whenever you're ready, Anna Catherine.
Thank you, Kim. Anna Catherine Carroll with the Preservation Society of Charleston. The Preservation Society really appreciates Mount Zion AME hosting us on site earlier this year and for the applicant's willingness to talk with us about this project. While we have no objections to the proposed modifications to the stair and side ramp for accessibility purposes, we would ask for clarification on the approach of salvaging and reusing portions of the existing stair material in the new stair configuration. Also, notes on the plans indicate that new stairs will be concrete with veneer to match existing, which the board has discussed, and we really appreciate the questions that have been raised thus far. And we would, in agreement, encourage further study of stair material to have a historically appropriate finish that is based on evidence of what previously existed and what can be found beneath the later finishes that have been applied to the material. Thank you for considering our position.
Thank you, Anna Catherine. Kim, do we have any more public comment?
Do we have April Wood? April, you have the floor.
April Wood, Historic Charleston Foundation. HCF has reviewed the application for final approval, including modifications to the entry, steps, and ramp at Mount Zion AME Church. We applaud this congregation for their careful plans to rehabilitate this important historic church. We believe that the proposed alterations are appropriate, with the recommendation of further investigating the brownstone material of the front steps to determine whether the material is a veneer or a slab. If it is a veneer and you go with the proposed plans, in order to make that proposal more reversible, we suggest adding a barrier between the remnants of the historic stairs and the concrete fill going on top so that the original stairs can more easily be exposed if desired in the future. We recommend approval of this application contingent on additional investigation of the brownstone. Thanks.
Kim, is that all for our public comment?
That is all.
All right, let's move on to staff comments and recommendations.
Sure. Staff's generally supportive of the request, especially for the safety of the congregation. We would ask for specification of wrought iron railings at both ramp and stair and steering away from any steel tube, and reuse existing wrought iron rails where possible, and detail the new center rail at front to match existing scroll work. I would add to consult stone conservator to implement investigation and a preservation plan moving forward for the front steps. We're recommending final approval with staff condition and final review by staff, which includes the preservation plan.
Kim, Mr. Beckham, did you have any response or clarification to any of the public comment or the staff recommendation?
I think in summary, and I think with the overall approach to our proposed renovations, I would agree. And for me, whether it's veneers or slabs, we essentially would propose the same thing. Again, the encapsulation of existing structure beneath, and then accommodate whether they are of slab thickness or veneer thickness, the existing finished materials, and in doing so, naturally keeping in the historical in historical consideration of the existing. So I would agree. And with regards to your comments, I think I actually there's some comments on the drawings that give direction towards reuse of the existing wrought iron railings. Well, the wrought iron, steering away from any steel tube at the ramp as well. We're certainly open to that. And then again, make use of the existing wrought iron at the entry steps, absolutely. And I think there's a note on the drawings somewhere to that effect. So I guess for me, we're in agreement with that. And I guess might we have some directions on how we proceed next with any further exploration, documentation, or presentation back to you guys with regards to more info on the finished material on the steps.
Thank you, Mr. Beckham. We'll get into board discussion and you may get some clarity on that. And on that note, let's open it up to board discussion now.
Fillmore, I have a question for staff. Part of this application is to reverse the swing of the front doors. Is that correct? That's what it looks like on the drawing. So it's a question.
It's kind of hard to tell because it seems like existing and proposed are sort of on top of each other.
Right. I can't tell, but that's why I'm asking staff is part of this request to reverse the swing of the front doors, because the extension, it looks like from the drawing, it's hard for me to read. I can't get the drawings quite big enough on my screen to really look at them closely, but it looks like part of the extension of the stair would accommodate the reverse of the swing, or would help to accommodate the reverse of the swing on the doors.
Yes.
Let's see. Yeah.
That's correct.
It looks like that creates pulling the stairs out creates a landing space, and it looks like the entry doors the swing has been reversed.
All right, this is Julia, and it just seems to me that there needs to be some further review of what is revealed when they are able to kind of see the existing materials. I'm not at all confident that they'll be able to extract that and reuse it. It might be in really bad condition, in which case the goal of greater safety would be compromised. So I don't know if staff is comfortable taking that on, or if they'd rather us kind of go review it at some point, but that seems like the only way to really resolve that question. But generally, I feel like the notion of adopting that material palette for the new extended stairs makes a lot of sense. I think that would be very respectful. In terms of the iron railing, it sounds like the applicant wants to incorporate, code required extensions, and I think that would require working with a thoughtful iron worker who could accommodate that while still maintaining some of the character of the existing elements. And I would just ask the applicant if he could, for final review, it would make it a lot easier if there were plans and elevations of the existing conditions, which could be easily compared to plans and elevations of the proposed conditions, at least in the areas of work that we're reviewing.
And it's Glenn. I'll echo what's been said, kind of paired with the belief that these are solid brownstone slabs, which are incredibly difficult to extract and reuse. So if the city is willing to sort of take that on as an item of the approval, I am comfortable with that. I think we definitely would just have to look at Secretary of Interior standards of how to handle this situation. Because whether these are veneers or solid slabs, brownstone is incredibly brittle and soft and will fall apart. So it is not like a granite veneer or a granite tread that you can sort of pop off and reuse. So I think attempting to extract these would probably result in an imminent failure of them and loss of them. I believe they're solid brownstone. I also think, and I'll go by there, I have not gone in person, but I also think that the coping walls underneath the iron fencing are solid brownstone that were painted at some point. So I think that is the material that was used here. And I would lean on staff to approve I'm not saying replacement, but a new material in kind or very similar. You know, there have been two things done around town. One is a cast brownstone out of concrete with brownstone powder essentially. And the other is attempting to find cut brownstone from the Northeast, which is relatively difficult to obtain. So I'm just saying all this because it is not an easy task. And I certainly commend the congregation for the work they're trying to do. And I just know that there are some details here that make this not the simplest of undertakings.
This is Bill, I'll chime in. I agree with most all the comments that have been made. I just wanted to add to Glenn, there may be a secret storehouse of brownstone, as of at least a couple of years ago that we know about. I would suggest maybe the applicant could contact, I believe, Historic Charleston Foundation may have knowledge of that. Just throwing that out. If you're listening, I hope I didn't volunteer you for something you don't do, but anyway. That's all.
Yeah, that Bill, I'll confirm that was the case. I don't know. I know there were some issues with storage at one point, but I would think if the applicant reaches out to staff, staff could certainly put them in contact with Historic Charleston Foundation if any of that salvaged stone is still available.
This is HCF. This is April. We do have a lot of stone, so I'm happy to have Kim connect us.
Awesome.
Kim, bear with me a minute here. I missed the answer to my question. If we approve this, we are approving the reverse of the swing of the front doors. Is that correct?
That is part of the proposal. If you approve it or deny it, that's up to you.
Oh, yes, I know. I mean, I'm trying to get clarification as to exactly what's on the table. I understand the desire to reverse the swing of those doors as a safety feature. Of course, in-swing doors in a panic situation are certainly a long way from being ideal. However, there are, significant historic churches in Charleston that still maintain their in-swing front doors. And I do not object to a solution to that as a life safety issue, but I would like to see a better detail on how that's going to be accomplished. because it's going to require some serious intervention into the original jambs on the door. The doors, not so much, but certainly some, but the original jambs on those doors is going to require significant intervention to reverse the swing of those doors. And I would like to see some more detail on how that's going to be accomplished. And Glenn, I agree 100%. I've worked a lot with brownstone. You're exactly right. I think it's very problematic. Those are the tops of those steps are probably brownstone slabs. They probably are deteriorated, and I think it would be problematic to remove them. And it's probably better if you can successfully do it, which again is problematic. It would be better to encapsulate them and leave everything in situ.
Yeah, I agree, Fillmore. And I was leaning toward a motion to deny the demolition of the existing steps, but to have details submitted to staff to preserve what is underneath and build new brownstone steps, essentially on top, meeting their requested dimensions is what I was sort of leaning toward throwing out there if the other members of the board think that is appropriate.
I could just interject. I feel that this should be heard at the board again, being a category 2, and just in the abundance of caution to make sure we're doing the right thing for the brownstone and the entrance door. I think it's very important.
Okay, yeah, I'm good with that. Yeah.
I was playing with a potential motion I'll just throw out there for consideration. Motion for final approval of the ramp with staff condition number 1 and deferral of front entry changes for more information on existing materials and proposed finishes and details.
Glenn, how does that square with yours? Do you agree with Julia's revised motion?
I think that's fair, Julia. Yeah, because it then allows the applicant to do a little more study, which I think they could probably quickly do with a 5-in-1 tool on those front steps and determine what's underneath, and allow them to bring back, an updated proposal and detailing for the doors and for the steps. And the handrails. So I am comfortable seconding that motion.
Okay, so the motion I am hearing is final approval of the ramp with staff comment number 1, deferral of the application for reversing the entry door and the steps.
You want me to give you some more words?
Yeah. This is for Kim's benefit.
Okay.
I got it.
Okay, you got it? For more information on existing materials and proposed finishes and details.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. Do we have any more board discussion on that? Are we all in agreement? That's the motion.
I second the motion.
Okay. The motion by Julia with a second by Glenn. I will put it to a vote. Fillmore?
Yay in favor.
Bill?
Yay in favor.
Julia?
Yay in favor.
Glenn?
Yay in favor.
Chair votes with the majority and the motion carries unanimously. Now we'll move on to the final agenda item of the evening. I understand that agenda item number 11 has been deferred. Agenda item number 10 is 29 Legree.
With me just a minute. Agenda item number 10, 29 Legree is requesting conceptual approval for modifications to north elevation, including new construction of a Port Corsair, and an extension of the existing elevator tower buildings of Category 2 in the Charlestown neighborhood circa 1835 and in the Old and Historic District. There's an aerial image of the property south of Trad and some existing site photos from the street. Looking south on Legree. Just photos from across the street. Another great project. Some historic images courtesy of Historic Charleston Foundation. And here's the 1973 architectural inventory card. And if you want to take it from here, Mr. Keys, floor is yours when you're ready.
Kim,
Yes.
can we go to the site plan, please? My name is Glenn Keys. I'm the architect for the project. This is 29 Legree Street, which is a very large lot, as you can see on the west side of Legree. It's a little bit unusual in that it has of course, the piazza on the south side, but the driveway is on the north side. And so there's the access for vehicular traffic and pedestrian traffic are a bit different. It's a challenge getting into the house, particularly in like inclement weather. The elevator is on the north side, and we're trying to propose a way to provide some covered entrance on that north side with a porte-cochere, which would sits back 27 feet from the property line. So it's tucked in behind the iron gates, and there's a considerable historic masonry wall on the north side. Okay, if you can go to the next slide, please. The image to the right shows you where the where the structure would go. Next. Viewing from the street on the left side there. Next. The house is primarily focused, of course, on the south side with a large garden, very deep lot. Next. And just an enlargement of the first floor plan. This is existing. So Kim, you can see the existing conditions. If you'll just scroll on to the proposed drawings, if you don't mind. So we have pushed the porte-cochere to the property line, to the garden wall. We did receive a variance from the BZA for that, and have met with the neighbor to the north, and they are supportive of our application. Next, please. Let's go on to the elevations, Kim. Okay, the view from the east, see the iron gates and the porte-cochere beyond. We also want to extend the elevator to the fourth floor. You can see the new construction is shaded. Next. No impact at all from the south elevation. Next. And then from the west. And then one more. So on the north side, we designed a low scale covered porte-cochere, which is designed to be kind of lightly visible, more garden structure type design than something heavy like the building, trying to make it its impact minimal. And the extension of the elevator, which was a three-story that was built in the 90s, and we're just extending it up to the top floor. We're also proposing a small hood over the door to the far right. We have had an opportunity to meet with and talk with the Historic Charleston Foundation and the Preservation Society, and they have been supportive. The society holds an easement on the property, and we are requesting conceptual approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keys. Do we have any board questions at this time?
Yeah, this is Bill. Glenn, regarding the porte cochere material question, I guess, is that, are those sort of emulating wood rafter tails or sort of pergola type detail? Is that all that woodwork to be painted, or is any of it wood, or what are the finishes?
It is painted wood. As I said, more like a garden structure than a heavy building addition to that side. That is really the back side of the building, the way it's oriented. That north side is where all the services are. Because of the orientation of the building from the front, as you saw the photographs, it's minimally visible. Certainly you can see it over the gates, but I think it's a very large building, and I think the small scale of that helps it to be minimized.
Glenn, Fillmore here. The roofing material on the porte cochere?
We really haven't selected that yet, but I think it would be a flat lock copper would be the best solution.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll just add on to that. So we can assume that the front elevation, which you would look at through the iron gates, is basically a mirror of the back elevation that we can see in that drawing.
That is correct.
Okay. All right. And the materials of the columns and the bases?
The bases would be masonry, and the columns would be wood.
Thanks.
Any more board questions? All right, let's move on to public comment. Kim, do we have any comments from the public?
We do. Anna Catherine Carroll, you've got the floor whenever you're ready.
Anna Catherine Carroll with the Preservation Society of Charleston. The Preservation Society is the exterior easement holder for this property and has conceptually approved the proposed scope of work, including construction of a new porte cochere and extension of the existing elevator tower as submitted. We look forward to continuing to work with the applicant through the review process. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna Catherine. Kim, do we have any other comments?
Oh, we have.
Okay. Now on to staff comments and recommendations.
Porte cochere is reversible and does not affect the historic fabric of the building, and staff are supportive. Utilitarian elements are simply detailed and respect the historic building. The elevator tower seems logical and respectful as well. Staff is recommending conceptual approval with final details to staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Mr. Keys, now that we've heard public comment and staff comment, is there anything that you want to clarify or respond to?
No, I think we're fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keys. We will move into board discussion.
This is Bill. I'll go ahead and start. Kim, can you get us one of those blow ups of the porte cochere? There you go. Thank you. That one was good. Okay, that was good too. Really, I think my only comment is I'm wondering if perhaps the depth of what I'm looking at here is the arched element there. The depth of that, especially as it corners out over the columns, is pretty deep. So what the reason I say this is what it's giving me the impression of seeing it all painted up together, and almost reads kind of like a cornice to me, maybe bridging over from a landscape looking pergola type element. And that would be a concern because then it starts to have what agrees, it appears to be a lot more detail on this little element than the house does itself. So I think maybe if there's a way to lighten up that beam element, maybe it might just be the recurve of that slight arch there, but just shallow that up and maybe heighten up the columns, maybe read it more like a beam and pergola type detailing. I know color is not necessarily in purview, but I would believe, as I'm seeing this sort of shaded dark, I believe it could be painted dark and recessed from the building and be, you know, a little more subordinate and landscape-ish in that format as well. So I'll just, again, make that read more like a beam and make that look more like a pergola type landscape element. And I think it's good.
I just have one little comment on this particular view. That piazza screen has a giant forehead and like somehow it's wonderful. I just wanted to point that out. Otherwise, I have nothing to add.
It's going into the record.
Kim, put your comments up there again. Okay, I'll float one if it's okay. Float a motion. I want to make a motion for conceptual approval with staff's comments and a board comment to try to lighten the appearance of the porte cochere entablature system to read more like a landscape type pergola, and final details to staff.
Okay. I have a motion for conceptual approval with staff comments and an added board comment to lighten the appearance of the porte cochere and the tablature system to read like a landscape pergola. Do I have a second? Bill, first, did I accurately convey your comment, your board comment?
Yes, you got it. Thank you.
And did any other board members have other comments to add to the motion? Hearing none, do we have a second? Glenn, you look like you want a second.
Okay, I'll second it.
Julia? If there's no other discussion on the motion, I'll put it to a vote. Glenn?
Sure. Yes, in favor.
Fillmore?
Yay, in favor.
Bill?
Yay, in favor.
Julia?
Yay, in favor.
Chair votes with the majority and the motion unanimously carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keys. And that brings us to the end of the January 28th meeting. Kim, did we have any other business?